Hi guys, welcome back to the Joe Blumen podcast. And today we're going to discuss the exiting of Mr. Ron DeSantis, which is probably the only person that is so remotely votable from a polls perspective. Vivek is is one of my favorites, but he's unfortunately he's so low in the polls that I don't think he's going to make any dent in this year or this coming nominations. What I do think is that he will be much more of a competitor coming or going forward. Um, Nikki Haley, typical. Unfortunately, she's got a lot of typical politician in her. It seems she had no money, and all of a sudden she's got a shitload of money, a lot of people behind her. It always makes you think. Donald Trump at the moment has got everything going against him, and his polls are just climbing. So, it's all these weird things that are going on in the world. I mean, it's like, you know, men can be women, and men can be pregnant, and Donald Trump is being locked up for, or is wanting to be locked up for sexual abuse, um, which I don't think he needed at, at that stage. Um, no woman would say no to Donald Trump. That he didn't have to go after women. They came after him. To be dead honest, um, no, I don't mean it in a nasty way or anything like that. It's just it's this person that he lost the case against, the defamation lawsuit. I mean, she was trying to sell a book. She came out with the story just before on the TV, and punting the story about Trump grabbing her in the dressing room of one of the stores, and all of a sudden nobody knew about this, and all of a sudden everybody knows about it because she just wrote a book about it because he came into power, and she's making millions off of people who hate Trump with Trump syndrome. I mean, because that's the only people that would have bought this book. Yeah. So, Florida government Ron DeSantis has withdrawn from the GOP presidential race, leaving former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley as the sole candidate to challenge Donald Trump for the nomination. However, Haley's chances of success appear slim as polls show Trump retaining strong support. DeSantis, in his announcement, expressed alignment with the hard right faction president uh, uh, faction represented by Trump, while portraying Haley as part of the party's old guard. Oh, oh, bomb! That must have hurt, because that's so true. Polls indicate that the majority of DeSantis supporters would choose Trump as their second choice, limiting the potential impact of Haley's campaign. Vivek Ramaswamy, I don't know. I mean, would some of DeSantis' supporters maybe not rather go after Vivek? I like the guy. I don't think he stands a chance. Um, and I do think he's got the right message. He's got the right idea, and that is bring the country together. Whereas Trump has divided the country. Um, and it's not necessarily Trump's fault. Trump is a nationalist. He wants to put his country first. It's just there are so many people that are oblivious of the fact that America sold their soul to China when they shipped off all the jobs and those kinds of things. Donald Trump's biggest, in my in my eyes, the best thing that Donald Trump could have done was the fact that he started charging import taxes on on um, on the Mexican border because he couldn't get the money funding for the wall. That was a brilliant move from his side, and then getting jobs back, taxing companies for extra for outsourcing work that can be done inside of the labor force. I mean, I live in an area where that was rich of the trucking industry. We were rich in clothing industry, and they opened it up for China and Pakistan, and the, they just couldn't compete with the costing, and the government never adjusted the 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 import taxes accordingly, and all these businesses went bankrupt. All these people lost their jobs, and I'm talking about huge, huge companies, and a lot of them. So that's something that Trump put in place, which sort of made guys say, okay, well, it's not any financial benefit anymore to outsource it. You know, give them a little bit of a nudge so they can come back. You know, um, you give them some tax breaks, those kinds of things. People talk about tax breaks, okay? And let's get back to that. I'm a strong believer in not charging businesses tax, and the reason for that is they'll generate work. The more people work, the more tax you revenue you'll get. So it's sort of a bit of a problem. What was that? It's the dog scratching. Dog scratching his balls. Uh, Apologies for that one. Okay, so which one would we take? Suppose Nikki Haley loses to Donald Trump by 15% in the um, New Hampshire, and also loses her home state of South Carolina by a big margin. Will she necessarily drop out of the race? It seems unlikely. A number of states that will vote on Super Tuesday offer, offer Haley much friendlier territory than do New Hampshire and South Carolina. California, Colorado, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Vermont, and Virginia all vote on Tuesday, March the 5th. And then we'll see what happens. So Ron DeSantis, bold move there. I take my hat off for him because he was the second runner up. I mean, there's no way Nikki Haley would have gotten it. I mean, I think the polls are screwed up when they say that she had any chance. But you know, the 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 cookies crumbled. I mean, there's no way of beating Donald Trump. He's made the courthouse his new place to speak to the media or to speak to his his um, his following. I mean, they cut him off from his rallies. They weren't talking about. They weren't there to represent at these rallies, and then they pitch up at the courthouses, and he just turns it around and makes that his platform to speak from. Off the corner of the courthouse where he's being indicted and prosecuted and all kinds of stuff. So he's just. I mean, this guy's just a strategist that is unbelievable. I mean, going up against him. I mean, And to be dead honest, I do think that Ron DeSantis was the closest that he would have had to competition, and I'm a big fan of him as well. Uh, the only problem is that Donald Trump just outclasses all of them when it comes to this, and it's because he's not a typical politician. Says what he thinks, and you get your people that like it, and you get your people that don't like it. The problem is he's got 50% of the country that likes it, 50% that don't like it, and then 50% of the country that likes him, and 50% that don't like it. So it's a bit of a rough one, but he's done a lot for free speech, to be dead honest, because he's so frank, and the big thing is he's a nationalist. He believes in his country and his countrymen first, and that's the way that the world should be thinking, not this whole utopia of letting people in to come and live there and live off social grants and stuff like that, and forcing down, because this is one of the biggest problems I have with the women's rights movement. They complain that women didn't have weren't allowed to work. Okay, my wife would love to sit at home. Okay, the problem is when they allowed women to work, they introduced probably about 40% more people into the workforce, which pushed down the salary prices because it's about supply and demand. Where you used to be able to have a father that worked, one car in the family, a house close to a school, mom was able to sort of, spend time with the kids and all these kinds of things and have a proper life. Now you can't have that. You can't have that anymore because women entered the marketplace. Now, I'm not saying women shouldn't work. I'm just saying that it had a huge impact, similar to letting people of all ethnicities and people come into your country for illegally in the first place, which is bloody stupid. But because I tried to go to America, I've got a BA honors degree. My wife is a nurse, ICU qualified, neonatal ICU qualified, and then she went to go and work as a clinical facilitator, and she studied nursing education, so she's a qualified lecturer as well as facilitator. So we are very qualified people to go to America, and we can't get into America. But if I was a Mexican with no qualifications, then I'm allowed to walk over the border and it's all fine and well. I see something seriously fucking wrong with that. Cheers, guys. See you back.